Alright, so moving on to the next segment, I'll be sharing my Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa fight summary. So, we seen last night in the co-main event of UFC 302, Sean Strickland defeated Paulo Costa in what was a middleweight fight that took place in the UFC in the middleweight division. We saw Sean Strickland defeat Paulo Costa by decision in a 5-round fight last night in the UFC. My thoughts on this fight personally, I expected more in this fight. I really thought that Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa were going to deliver a more entertaining fight than what we saw in the co-main event of UFC 302. I thought there would really be some true bombs exchanged between the two significant strikers. Both fighters are known for fighting on their feet, not known for being grapplers, known for throwing significant strikes and significant bombs throughout their fights. And last night, it just left a sour taste in my mouth because I expected way more in this fight. That judge who scored the fight 49-46 in favor of Paulo Costa should never, ever call MMA fights on big-time stages, on big-time platforms ever again. And I agree with Dana White. That guy might want to go back to the minor leagues judging fights because that was not it. And it was clear to everybody that Sean Strickland won that fight last night against Paulo Costa. But Sean Strickland had the better game plan against Paulo Costa. Like I said on the Combat Series last week, he should walk down Paulo Costa. He did that in the fight. He used his striking ability, his striking background. He did that. I said he should do that last week on the podcast. He brought Paulo Costa to the deep waters and drowned him. I said he should do that on the podcast last week because Paulo Costa does not have the cardiovascular endurance to swim in deep waters in late and 5-round fights. And it was proved last night because he was gassed throughout the first 2 rounds when Sean Strickland really was fresh as a daisy. Wasn't even breaking a sweat walking down Paulo Costa and being the more aggressive fighter throughout the 5 rounds. And that was a great game plan, pressuring Paulo Costa, landing the strikes when needed to. Very patient, and I like the game plan. I would have liked Sean Strickland to just be a little bit more dangerous and give us more things to look back on for this fight. But I respect it, and hats off to Sean Strickland winning this fight. Now, what's next for Sean Strickland? Now, as my nose gets itchy here, what's next for Sean Strickland? I do believe that he is in line for a middleweight championship fight. He is currently the #1 ranked middleweight fighter in the middleweight division right now in the UFC. And I truly would like to see a rematch between himself and Dricus du Plessis in the middleweight division for the middleweight championship. Now, if you guys remember, these two respective fighters fought in January, the beginning of this year, when Sean Strickland was the middleweight champion. In his first title defense, he came up short, and Dricus du Plessis became the new middleweight champion, defeating him by decision. The fight in January was very good. It would be a big fight to make in the second half of 2024. I think Sean Strickland is more deserving of an opportunity, despite the fact that he lost that fight in January, but just had a really good performance against Paulo Costa, a top 10 middleweight fighter. So the way how people scored it in January, the fight could have went either way, of Sean Strickland's favor or Dricus du Plessis' favor. I just need to see the rematch, and I hope we get that in the later part of 2024. So, what's next for Paulo Costa? This is really the part, and if you guys follow the podcast, it's really the part where I have a route for winners and losers, whether I'm covering a UFC fight summary or a boxing fight summary. I normally have a route for the winners and losers. Right now, I really don't have a route for Paulo Costa. I don't know where he goes after this. Because if you really watch Paulo Costa, the talent is there. And if you watch the Paulo Costa that was undefeated in the UFC before losing to Israel Adesanya, that Paulo Costa was there fighting with his life on the line. Willing to do any damage to any men that stood in front of him in the octagon. And I just feel like after that Israel Adesanya loss, we have not seen that Paulo Costa since. And he's never been the same mentally, I don't think. I think Israel Adesanya might have broken him in the octagon. And he's had some huge losses. Lost earlier this year in the co-main event of UFC 298 to Robert Whittaker. And now Sean Strickland. So he's piled up some losses in the middleweight division to some elite guys that you're going to have to get through in order to get to the top of the mountain and to become, in order to become a middleweight champion. So his stock is going to take a huge hit following this performance in the middleweight division. I can understand if he lost a close fight, but this was all Sean Strickland's world, and all 5 of those rounds, I did not see Paulo Costa aggressive. I saw him very gassed, very fatigued, being walked down throughout the first 2 rounds of the fight, which really disappointed me. So, with all due respect, I don't know where Paulo Costa goes after this. He was ranked the 7th best fighter in the middleweight division. His stock is gonna take a plummet, and I just hope he finds that aggressive nature in him again. And I hope nothing but the best for Paulo Costa, but I really don't know where he goes after this. But that is my fight summary between Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa.